So I finally got to play the Duskbloods Network Test. I wanted to make sure that I was going to get in at least 2 sessions because the first session was spent kind of like running around like a headless chicken trying to figure out what exactly I was supposed to be doing in order to achieve the multitude of objectives that would qualify me to participate in the later phases of the game. And that is actually one of the things that I'm a little bit concerned when it comes to the Duskbloods, and that is the sheer complexity of all of the things that are happening in a single match of Duskbloods. Because one of the things that this game is going to need is a fresh pool of players constantly coming into the game, and I feel that the game is not going to be particularly new player friendly. Now, this is just based on what we experienced on the network test, so naturally the final version of the game is still going to go through some iterations. Some things are likely going to change, and the game might even become much more new player friendly. But as it is right now, I feel like that is going to be a bit of an uphill battle when it comes to the Duskbloods. That's not to say that there aren't good tutorials, because the game most definitely has some really good tutorials when you go to the House of Night and you can kind of like figure out, oh, how do ritual sites work? How do sigils work? How do all of these different mechanics work? And you can kind of understand a lot of them. But when you're trying to apply those concepts that you learn on tutorials into an actual match with other players, things are rarely going to go according to plan. There's going to be a lot of rogue elements involved, and I believe that the final version of the game is going to be even more complex. Now, before we go any further, I would just like to point out that the footage that you guys are watching in this video is B-roll that was provided to me by Oroboro. This is from his video that he did on the Duskbloods. There's going to be a link in the description of this video so that you guys can go check out his video where he talks about his opinions on the game after having played like 10 hours at From Software headquarters and all of that good stuff. So I'd highly recommend you guys check that out. Thank you very much, Oru. But without any further ado, let's talk about what exactly can you expect from the Duskbloods, and is this going to be a game that is going to be for you, depending on the type of player you are when it comes to Soulsborne games. So the basic structure of a Duskbloods match is going to be that of a battle royale. It's not exactly like a battle royale. It doesn't really have like the ever shrinking circle, at least not in the version that we played in the network test. That's not to say that that might not be a special event that might happen in the final version of the game, or it might happen in a specific map, because supposedly in this network test, we only really have access to 1 map, but in the final version of the game, we're going to have access to at least 3. So we don't know all of the events that are going to be present, even though I am going to be talking about some of those events, but we do get an idea of what the overall structure of the game is. And as I was saying, it is kind of like a battle royale between 8 players, where between each of the phases of the game, there's going to be players that are going to be getting eliminated. And in the current version of the game, the final phase will consist of the 3 players that have gotten the most points, which is a thing called virtue, which we'll get into more detail about how that stuff works. But basically in the final phase, you're going to have the 3 players that have accrued the most virtue. The more virtue you have, the more health you will have in the final stage of the game. And then those players will fight it out for the position of seeing who gets to be the #1 player. I've been to this final stage of the game a couple of times. I've won once, and I've ended up second a lot of times. I only got the 1 win, though, because I'm just not that good at Souls PvP, to be completely honest. I'm much more of a PvE type of player, but that's not to say that I can't have fun with the game. Now, like I said, right now, in the network test, the final culmination, which is called Blood Bestowal, ends up in a PvP match, but that's not to say that in the final version of the game, that's going to be the same thing. There's actually going to be options that you can like set in the game that are going to allow you to finish up with more of a PvE-themed encounter. But one of the things that I would say is I don't really think that you can count on this game being too friendly when it comes to PvE, because at a certain point in time, you are going to end up having to face up against another player, and I kind of know how a lot of people feel when it comes to that stuff, at least in my community. I know that we do have a couple of Iron Breakers that appreciate the odd PvP here and there. I happen to be one of them. I do like PvP. It's not my main thing, and I don't consider myself to be particularly good at it, but I like the threat of being ganked at any point in time. I think that's an interesting aspect of From Software games, so that's always something that I somewhat appreciated. But I also know that a lot of people in my community quite simply do not want to engage in PvP at all. And I know that you might have been listening to some of the stuff that Miyazaki has been saying about like, oh, there's a lot of options to do things in PvE. And yes, that is correct. That is true. There's a lot of options that you can, engage in PvE, and you can get virtue points, which is like the scoring system of this that makes you eligible to fight in the later stages of the game. But I feel like PvP is pretty much an inevitability unless a lot of stuff gets changed in the game, because you're just going to run into other players. And there's always going to be those players that are going to attack you, even if there's nothing to gain from it. Because that's an interesting thing. There's actually quite a lot of situations where you might find another player and your baser instincts might say, oh, I should fight them. I should kill the other player because, it's another player. But the reality is, a lot of the times, if that player is not going to net you virtue for killing him, it's actually a waste of your time. Actually, it's a waste of both of you guys' time, which might be something that you want to engage in because the player maybe did you dirty earlier, or maybe you just want to, be a villain or something. That's fine. But there are a lot of situations where you really shouldn't be engaging in combat with the players because it just doesn't make sense from the purpose of, you getting virtue, which is what is going to enable you to qualify for the later stages of the game. So just to keep that in mind, you will be engaging in PvP sooner or later. I kind of feel like it's completely unavoidable. So if you're expecting like, oh, I'm just going to be a peaceful Duskbloods player, it's like, sure, you can be peaceful. That doesn't mean that people are going to be peaceful back. Okay, just keep that in mind. Now, having said that, there are different types of modes that you can join into. Now, I mostly just played the standard mode for the network test because I just wanted to get fast matches and I wanted to get in as many matches as I possibly could. But basically right now you have solo queue, which is basically you go in and anything can happen. You have a queue with no alliances. Now what this means is during a match, you can ally with a player. And you might be like, oh, this is great. I can just ally with another player. This is all advantages. It's not. The only alliance I ever did was a player randomly asked me for an alliance. I accepted the alliance and it was terrible because this player was not gaining any points. He was not gaining any virtue. And basically I was giving him half of all the virtue that I was gaining. And basically it was like running around with a boat anchor tied in my ankles for the rest of the match. So you really need to think through whether or not you want to be doing alliances, but basically you can queue into a mode where there are no alliances and it's just like a big free-for-all. And then there's another mode which I think is called Bloodbound Alliance. I don't remember the exact name, but basically you're going to start with an alliance to another player, and then you're going to keep that alliance all throughout, and it's just you and this other player against the world. Now, in the network test, you can't really do this with friends, so if you do Bloodbound Alliances, I believe it's going to be random. Like I said, I just played standard. I didn't play alliance modes because I was still trying to learn as much about the game as I could. But in the final version of the game, from the interview that I saw from Miyazaki, you're going to be able to do this with your friends. And that might be one of the more interesting scenarios where you can just team up with a friend and you guys can go into a Bloodbound Alliance mode and you're basically queuing in duos. That's the idea. And I believe that in those situations, the final showdown is going to basically be a 2v2. So they're going to pick the two teams that have the most virtue points, and those two teams will face each other off in the final round of the match. At least that's what I believe to be the case so far. Do keep in mind, most of these things are subject to changes, as this is a game in active development, and the main objective of the network test was to test the capabilities of the network. And this was a network test because very much in From Software tradition, the very first session of the network test straight up didn't work. It is what it is. The servers buckled. I don't know exactly what happened, but so far the other two sessions that happened afterwards, I was able to participate in both just fine. I am not going to participate in the last one because this one it's again at 3 in the morning, so we're not going to be doing that. But yeah. So now let's talk about how each of these matches goes through. So one of the important things is whenever you jump into a Duskbloods match, you are going to have two separate objectives. One of your objectives is going to be earn experience, both for yourself and your companion. You guys might be like, well, what is a companion? That's another thing. The very first thing you want to be doing, jump into a match, you're going to look for these pillars of light, because the pillars of light are going to give you access to like this portal that you can summon a companion to. And that's one of the first things you want to be doing so that you can get a companion that helps you out. You do not want to be running around solo. I don't think there's any advantage to running around solo. Maybe there is. If there is, I'm not aware. But like usually some of the best players that I fought in Duskbloods, they all had like a good companion. One of the better companions in this network test seems to be the fat guy on the chariot, because he takes up a lot of screen real estate, which means that a lot of times the players will end up locking onto him instead of locking onto you. Even if they lock onto you, he gets in the way, he annoys people, and he's got a really good command grab that will just destroy people. So he happens to be, in my opinion, one of the best summons, but there are other good summons. There's a gargoyle that heals you. There's a lady that's got guns. She shoots your enemies. There's another lady with dual katanas, also very good. But you definitely want to jump in, get a companion. Now, after you get your companion, your objective is going to be twofold. You want to level up, and you want to gain virtue. Now, the game is divided in 4 phases. Your first phase should always be focused on leveling up. So that just means killing stuff. Kill stuff, don't get killed. Kill as many things as you can. If you're able to pick up items, pick up as many items as you can, because picking up items also gives you like virtue in the long run, because there are things that you could almost consider like achievements in between matches. So like, let's say, oh, you picked up the most items of any player. That means you get this collector bonus thing, and that gives you virtue, which I'll explain why you need virtue a little bit further ahead. But again, during the first phase of a Duskbloods match, you really just want to be focusing on killing stuff. Now, not just killing stuff, but if you're able to bite stuff. Now, biting stuff means you're going to bust their stagger gauge, and if you're able to bust enemy stagger gauges, you're going to be able to bite them, and that converts them to fight for you for a small period of time, which is very good, because you basically can build up like a small little army so that you can keep advancing through the zone that you're in, and you can keep killing stuff more efficiently because you're going to have more enemies, more allies with you, together with your companion that you already should have. So you can keep like roaming through that zone, killing stuff, eventually killing stronger monsters. Once you start killing stronger monsters, you will recognize what they look like. Once you start killing those, you're also going to start gaining virtue. So those are 2 different things, experience and virtue. Virtue is the points. So basically, whenever you do meaningful things in the game, you are going to earn virtue. So there's a lot of stuff, like killing bosses is one. Some of those bosses can be trespassers, which means they'll also send invites to other players to join you for a co-op thing. And then they can join you and help you kill a boss, and everybody gains virtue. So the game can be PvE as well as PvP at any point in time. And these trespassers are going to be situations where it is going to be mostly PvE, assuming that players do come to help you. Beyond killing, smaller bosses or bigger bosses that require more players to engage in, you can also just get random drops from mobs. Like sometimes you'll kill a couple of mobs and they will drop virtue, like they'll drop 1 virtue or 2 virtue or whatever, and you'll be able to pick up virtue that way. Another way of getting virtue is there's going to be like these purple chairs that you'll find throughout the world. If you go up to them and you light a candle on top of those characters, it's just a prompt. You press a button, boom, lights a candle. You're going to gain virtue. And then there's also, if you are the player who's been killing more NPCs, you can also gain virtue from that. And then eventually later down the line, you're going to be interacting with stuff called ritual sites, which you can see one in the video right now. If you interact with those, you also gain virtue. If you kill players near those, you also gain virtue. And then there's also sigil objectives, which I didn't really do too many of, but they'll usually involve either killing a specific player. There's one that involves a marriage proposal, which is really, really weird. I haven't done that one at all. I've just been focusing on learning the more basic stuff. There's another one where you're supposed to ally with someone, and then if you guys make it to the final round or whatever, you both gain more virtue. But yeah, there's a multitude of ways of gaining virtue. And the reason you want to gain virtue is, in the first phase, when that ends and you go into phase 2, Everything's fine. Everybody's still in the game. No issues. When you go from phase 2 to phase 3, the 2 players with the least amount of virtue get booted off. That's the Battle Royale portion of the game. So you just get booted off the game. That's it. You're done. You lost. When you go from phase 3 to phase 4, the 3 players with the least amount of virtue get booted off. And then in phase 4, there's only 3 players left, and those players will fight each other to kind of like figure out who is the better player. According to Miyazaki, he considers it to be a major triumph for you just to be able to reach phase 4. So I'm assuming that that is already going to net you significant rewards for progression. We didn't really get to see what progression rewards look like in the network test. There's no progression between matches. So, you know, that's still kind of like... that's still up in the air what that's going to be like. But in the final version of the game, even just, you know, playing the game and doing objectives here and there, not necessarily needing to be the best player, you're still going to be able to progress somewhat. But let me just say, that is going to be very frustrating. It can get really frustrating if you are, you know, trying to do stuff and you just get called midway through your match. It's very, very frustrating. So especially for players that are not into PvP, be ready, because there's a lot of frustrations to be had in this game. So, now that you guys know how each of these 4 phases work, there are also events that can happen in between phases. I don't think that you usually get events in phase 1, but from phase 2 onwards, you can have special events that can happen in a match. So the events that we got to see were Blood Gala. And Blood Gala means that there's going to be these blood bugs that show up, and they're kind of like crystal lizards. And those will give you power-ups for your character's skills, because each character has like a bunch of stuff that they can do, and one of those things is going to be 2 skills that they have access to. And these blood lizards are going to give you access to upgrades for the skills. Those upgrades can be like lower cooldowns, additional uses. So for instance, the character that I play the most is Zork. He has this ability that you guys are seeing on screen right now, where he kind of flies into a monster, smacks into it. And usually at the beginning, that ability has 2 uses. I've had that as high up as 5 uses. So you can use the ability 5 times before it goes into cooldown for more abilities, which is really cool. You can also increase the damage of the ability. You can, you know, reduce the cooldown, all of that good stuff for both the abilities of each of the characters. But that's kind of like Blood Gala. Usually you will still find these blood crystal lizards, even if it's not Blood Gala time. But during Blood Gala, there's going to be way more of them present in the map, so it makes it easier for people to upgrade and have like a crazy showdown at the end with everybody with juiced up skills, basically. Beyond Blood Gala, there was another one that I did, which was Ring the Bell, which focused on players climbing up the clock tower and then ringing the bell, and that would give you bonuses in terms of virtue. So you would gain bonus virtue, but it would also give you like a mission that you would have to do. So that mission could be, I don't know, conquer a ritual site, or you'd gain increased virtue from doing PvE stuff, or you would gain increased virtue from doing PvP stuff. So there's a bunch of things that you can get from that one. Then there was one that I really didn't like, which was a storm. And the way that the storm worked was every now and then you just get teleported to a random location. So you would choose a position in the map, and then you'd be fighting in your position of the map that you've chosen strategically. And then the game's just like, well, everybody's getting teleported around. And then everybody gets teleported to random spots on the map, which I really did not like that one. Then there's another one where there's a blimp roaming the skies, and apparently that blimp can do airstrikes and crazy stuff like that. I didn't really see that one work all too well, but that is one of the things that can happen. Another one was something about fallen stars. So fallen stars would fall into the map, and you would have to go and collect the star. And then if you hold the star at the end of the phase, then you get an additional bonus to your virtue. So these are some of the events that can happen. I'm assuming there's going to be way more events that can take place during a match. But these are things that are going to keep matches fresh and not just predictable and, you know, just kind of like something that people can know what to expect and kind of like meta their way around it to just have more variation. But yeah, So 4 phases, crazy events in between phases. The main objective is get as many virtue as possible. You can get that virtue doing PvE activities, but sooner or later you're going to run into other players and you're going to be forced into doing PvP. Now let's talk a little bit about the combat. How does the combat work during these matches? Well, you're going to pick a Bloodsworn, which are the classes in this game. According to the interviews and information that has been given to content creators, there's going to be 10 or more Bloodsworns when the game comes out. In this particular build of the game, we have 6 Bloodsworns. I might end up making a video dedicated to each of the Bloodsworns. If you guys are curious about that, make sure to let me know in the comment section down below. But each of the Bloodsworns is basically a class in and of itself. They're going to come with their melee weapon, their ranged weapon, their 2 abilities. All of them can block. All of them can do this thing called a howl, which is kind of like a pseudo parry. All of them can do guard counter, and all of them have hella mobility. Okay, so those are the classes, and you know, one of the things that a lot of people are going to be wondering, so I can't change the weapons of my Bloodsworn? No, at least in the current version of the game, you cannot. You have your one weapon, your one ranged weapon, and basically they balance the whole game like that. So each of your Bloodsworn has their preset stuff. They have their 2 abilities. We don't know if these are going to be customizable in the later version of the game. We do know that there's going to be some form of customization of Bloodsworn. We don't know if that's just cosmetic customization or if you will actually be able to exchange the different skills that they have and maybe run different builds with them. We just don't know. There's a lot of information that at this point we don't know yet. I'm assuming that at least there's going to be some type of cosmetic customization because that would be something that you'd expect. But yeah, so your characters are going to have melee attacks. These work like your standard Soulsborns. So your right bumper is going to be your fast attack. Your right trigger is going to be your heavy attack. You can charge your heavy attack. One of the things that is different from Elden Ring, which was kind of confusing to me, because I saw in the controls that there was a guard counter, and then I was like, wait, guard counter in Elden Ring is you block, and then you press trigger, and here you block, and then you press right bumper instead. So I was very confused with that for a bit, but yeah, it works just like you'd expect from if you played Elden Ring, you've done guard counters, you know how that works. Ranged weapons function differently depending on the character. Like the character that you're watching right now is Senator Samir, and Samir throws out this bird, and basically the bird regenerates over time, so you can keep throwing out the bird, kind of like a magic type of thing. There are other characters that straight up have bullets and guns, like John Duskbloods, who is called Albert. He has like a submachine gun. He fires that. You can reload it. The character that I like, Zork, he also has ammunition that regenerates over time, so he shoots like his spear gun. And if you charge the spear gun, it will actually shoot an explosive projectile. So if it sticks onto an enemy after a while, it will explode. And those projectiles regenerate over time. You don't really have to reload it or do anything like that. But there are characters that you're expected to reload, like, for instance, Layla the Sniper. You're expected to reload her gun. But yeah, the ranged weapon changes depending on the character that you are playing, but you're always expected to be shooting your opponents, meleeing your opponents, and using abilities to get your opponents. The Howl, like I said, is kind of like a parry, and my favorite class, Zork, he can actually extend the Howl a little bit longer, so he can scream longer than other classes, which is pretty cool. But the bigger use for the Howl, I've been struggling to get to use Howl on players. It's kind of hard. But using Howl on NPCs is really what you want to be doing, because that's going to increase the stagger. That's going to let you eventually bite the NPC, and that will let you kind of like get temporary allies for whatever it is that you happen to be doing. And every character has tons of mobility. As a matter of fact, mobility is one of the things that makes this game incredibly fast-paced. Like, your characters will straight up quadra jump. So you can jump, then you can do 3 air jumps, and then you can do an air dash on top of that, which is just, if you've played Soulsborns before, you're like, holy crap, what exactly are we playing right now? That is crazy. There's lots and lots and lots of mobility. Now, This in a way is a good thing because it makes it feel really nice to just roam around the map because you can get anywhere that you want, not just doing quadra jumps, but you can also do a super jump at the beginning. So if you hold down the jump button, your character will jump higher than normal, and then you can still do the next 3 jumps, and then you can still do the air dash, and that allows you to reach really high. There's tons of verticality. And like I said, in a way, that's a good thing for navigation, exploration, all of that. In another way, it makes it so that whenever you're engaging in PvP with other players, it gets really hectic really fast because everybody's jumping all over the place. And a lot of times you'll be like fighting a monster, fighting a boss or something, and someone just quadra jumps in and then murders you at the last second. That is going to be one of the things that is going to be happening to a lot of people. You're going to be getting ganked right as you're about to kill a boss and gain a chunk of virtue or something like that, like you're doing something risky. Somebody's going to come in and they're going to punish the chances that you are taking. So keep that in mind. It is going to get frustrating if you're not into PvP. It has all of the... how should I put it? All of the... I'm going to say toxic. I don't actually mean toxic because it's expected when you're in a PvP environment. But it's got all of those things where you're like, oh, I was doing this thing. Somebody came in from behind and friggin' murdered me and stole my kill. Yep, that's going to happen. That's going to happen a lot. So now that you kind of understand most of the mechanics, most of that good stuff, what are my opinions on how I feel about the game, how it feels to play, and all of that stuff? I think the game is really fun. It's going to feel very familiar if you've played other From Software titles. Like, particularly, I feel like the vibe that you get from this in terms of movement and stuff is going to feel kind of like Bloodborne, you know, you're dashing around and all of that stuff. It's just Bloodborne, but with a lot of jumping. You also have the Surge Sprint from Night Rain, so your characters can run real fast across the map. You can straight up teleport to different positions of the map whenever you want. So even if you are, like, let's say on one edge of the map and you're like, oh crap, I really need to be on the other side of the map, you could just open up the map and there's going to be like a teleporter that you can just take that will take you close to where you want to be. And then from there, you can resume whatever it is that you want to do. So this is particularly important when it comes to fighting over the ritual sites like the one that you're seeing now, because these don't activate as soon as the round begins. So usually these will activate in the 3rd round. Sometimes there will also be ritual sites in the 2nd round. But whenever these become active in a round, the round starts and they're actually inactive. And then midway through the round, they'll activate. So that's why it's important for you to like, oh, the ritual sites are activating, I better make my way to a ritual if you want to make ritual points, because you don't have to engage in rituals. There are other ways of gaining virtue. It's just usually the way that it goes in this game, the riskier an action is, the more likely you are to get increased amounts of virtue. So like killing players at ritual sites is going to be a way to gain like lots and lots of virtue. Like I finished one of my matches with, I think, almost 130 virtue, which was crazy. I was like, that's insane. Like 130 virtue is just way too much, because I was able to really capitalize on a lot of crazy things that were happening throughout the map. But yeah, so I think it's fun. I think the gameplay is satisfying. I think sometimes it is a little bit too hectic for me. Like I have a hard time keeping up with an opponent that's like quadra jumping into the air, and I'm trying to be like, okay, should I shoot you? No, because my gun is not fast enough to hit you. You basically are forced to kind of just like dodge, wait till they land, then try to capitalize that way. Because one of the things is you can't heal while you're in the air. So if you hit an opponent, eventually they're going to have to land in order to heal, and that's going to be your chance to do a punish. But the thing is, you're not just keeping track of your opponent, as you can see here, you also have to keep track of their companions. So it becomes quite messy if you're not careful in PvP engagements, okay? So I do think it's fun. I think that there's a lot of interesting mechanics, a lot of cool abilities, a lot of fun stuff, but I also like PvP. If you don't like PvP, I don't think this game is for you. Like, I know that, Miyazaki's been talking about how there's a lot of PvE stuff and yada, yada, yada. I don't think that the PvE content that you're going to be getting from this is going to be enough to justify an average PvE player to be going like, oh yeah, I'm absolutely going to love Duskbloods as somebody who mostly plays PvE and I don't actually enjoy PvP. Now, having said that, if you're a PvE player that enjoys the occasional bout of PvP, then yeah, you might enjoy it. There's some boss fights, there's some stuff like that, but usually the most challenging aspects of the game is going to be engaging in PvP with other players. And let me tell you something. Boy, was the network test sweaty. I'm talking like giga sweat, okay? I'm talking like people were dripping sweat from their chairs sweaty, okay? Every single match that I was in, people were just like, the second they'd see you, even if there was an advantage in killing you, they would try to go after. Like, I had this player who I killed like, I don't know, friggin' 10 times in a row. No, well, 10 times too much. I don't know, like 2 or 3 times. I killed this player like 3 times. He kept coming back. I'm like, he had nothing to gain from killing me, but he kept coming after me for some strange reason. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I would keep killing him, but the thing is, he was wasting my time because I also wasn't getting anything done because I was having to waste my precious time killing this guy. It was weird. So yeah, people do get very sweaty. You're going to get third-partied quite often. So you'll be either engaged in a boss or you'll be engaged with another player. A third player will show up out of nowhere and they'll murder you. As a matter of fact, the people who are able to capitalize on situations like that, people who are able to like see, oh, there's 2 players engaged over there and show up near the end and they can capitalize on their timing, those are going to end up being probably the best Duskbloods players, because that's what I noticed being the most successful players, be the guys that would just like, oh, okay, I see that there's 2 guys fighting over there. I'm going to show up near the end and then mess whoever wins, right? But yeah. Now, I don't think that this particular version of the game is super friendly towards players that are interested in PvE. I think that the final version will be friendlier because there are going to be settings that you'll be able to have where the final phase will actually end up being a PvE phase. That might be more interesting for a lot of people, but I still think that overall, you're signing up for a PvP game. You're straight up signing up for a PvP game, and a very fast-paced PvP game at that. So you're always going to have the pressure of time between each phase to make sure that you get as much experience and as much virtue as possible. Like, think Night Rain, but even more pressure because you're up against human opponents. And if they take over something, like if they capitalize on virtue somewhere, you're not going to capitalize on virtue. As a matter of fact, there's a deployment thing at the start of each phase. So at the beginning of the game and then in between each phase, there's like a deployment thing. And the deployment gives you an estimation of how populated an area is going to be. It is very important for you to have a game plan going in. Like, okay, I'm going to go to this area. What am I going to be doing in this area? Am I going to be fighting a boss? Am I going to be looking for an ally? Am I going to be, trying to look for these chairs that I can put the candles in and all of that stuff? You got to have a game plan, because you got to hit the ground running every single time. And if you go into an overpopulated area, be ready for players to be fighting for the resources of that area. So do keep that in mind. One of the things that bothered me quite a bit that I didn't really expect was the abrupt ending of each phase. Like I said, each match is divided into 4 phases. And the way that it works is just straight up. You're in the middle of a phase, you're doing something, time runs out. There's like a clock on the top right-hand corner of the UI. Time runs out, and the game just goes like, okay, it's over. It's like when you're doing an exam in school, and your teacher just goes, everybody put down your pencils, because like, that's it, that's done. And it abruptly ends the phase. Like, straight up. It's like, oh, you were trying to kill this boss? Too bad. You didn't make it. It is what it is. Right? You don't get the virtue. You wasted your time. It's just very, very punishing. The way that a phase just abruptly ends. And not only that, but I feel like it almost, it's harder for me to get into a flow state because you'll be playing, and I don't know exactly how long it is between each of the phases, but you'll be playing and then suddenly go, everybody stop, everybody start again. And then you get to the end of phase 2 and the same thing happens. Everybody stop, everybody start again. I don't know, there's something about the pacing of that felt a little bit off to me. That might just be a me thing because I was expecting something more in line with Night Rain. Night Rain also has phases, but each phase seamlessly flows into the next phase. You go, you fight the Night dude, yada yada yada, then you go and you level up some more, you fight Night 2, and then you go into the final boss, but everything happens seamlessly in between each of the stages of Night Rain. Whereas in here, like the first couple of times that you go into a match is going to feel incredibly jarring because you'll be in the middle of a fight and then the game just says stop, and then everything stops, and then you go back to deployment and everything starts again. It's a little bit weird, and that is one of the things that I don't know if there's a way to smooth that. I don't know exactly how you could smooth it, but it is one of the things that bothered me a little bit. But besides that, like I said, I think the game is fun. I think the combat is fun. If you're into PvP, you will likely enjoy it. Now, in terms of visuals, visual fidelity is not the best, as you could imagine. This is a Switch 2 title, a Switch 2 supposedly exclusive. I'm not sure if this is going to be coming out on PC or on consoles at a later date. We still don't know exactly how that's going to work out. I sure as hell hope it does. But yeah, so the visuals are not going to be the most highest fidelity, but as per usual, when it comes to From Software, the art style absolutely delivers in spades. The animations are very good, but the performance is a little bit all over the place. So I had frames as low as like 30. I don't think I had sub 30 FPS, but you can get them higher. You can get them maybe like up to 50 or something like that. So I'd say somewhere between 30 and 50, depending on what is happening on screen. I did feel multiple times that, because I'm used to, nowadays I play most of my games at 30 FPS. And it's like, usually in PvE games, it doesn't bother me. Like, I can adjust very quickly. But in a PvP game, having only 30 FPS can get frustrating at times, because like you're trying to keep up with an opponent that's like triple jumping into the air and doing cartwheels and doing all these crazy things, and the frame rate's not keeping up, and then the camera is struggling a little bit to keep up as well, and it can get a little bit frustrating. So I did feel like in some matches it did affect how well I was able to fight my enemies. They might still improve on that, they might not, I'm not exactly sure. It's like, it doesn't run bad, but there are points at which the frame rate is not the most consistent, for sure. But yeah, in terms of sound, everything was fine. No real big complaints. Like, you'll recognize a lot of these sounds if you've played previous From Software titles. So yeah, in terms of the different Bloodsworn, each of them has different play styles that they enable you to do. The only one that I would say I actually liked playing was Zork. Zork is very fun. He's like your big, heavy melee dude. He goes in, smashes people. You can shoot people. You can yeet yourself at people. Pretty fun. Some of the other ones felt much more, agile, dex type of characters. So I'll be curious to see what are the other Bloodsworn that we're getting. I played all of them just to test them out, but the only one that really gelled with me was Zork. But I can see that there's going to be a lot of playstyles supported here. With the different abilities and the different weapons that each of the characters has. I think there's something here for pretty much everyone. And yeah, those are my thoughts on the Duskbloods. I would say that I'm a little bit conflicted. I expected it to be a little bit more PvE friendly, but in a way, if you think about Night Rain being the PvE version of Souls games multiplayer, then most definitely Duskbloods is the PvP version. Like, there are PvE things that you'll be doing, but it is first and foremost a PvP thing based on the network test. So my opinion can change when the final version of the game comes out, but those are my thoughts on it right now. I will be playing it when it comes out because it was fun enough to the point where I think I'll get some cool matches. And I also think that this game, I think I saw in an interview, the game will support like private matches. Each match will have 8 players. And if the game supports private matches, I think that could be fun for me to host like community events where like we'll just host our private matches and it'll just be people that are from the stream. I think that can be fun, depending on how many people from the community end up joining this game and whatnot. But that is one of the things that I'm more excited for than necessarily like ranked matches and stuff like that. Because I already know I'm not the type of sweaty player that's going to be, you know, going after the big ranks and all of that stuff. Because I'm just not that good at Souls PvP. But having like a fun game to play with the community and whatnot, where we kind of just like hang out, beat each other up for funsies, do some PvE shenanigans and whatnot. I think it could be really fun. But we'll see how it pans out with like more updates in terms of news and stuff for the Duskbloods. But for now, that's going to be it from me. Let me know what you guys think about Duskbloods. Did you get to play the network test? Give me your opinion in the comment section down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong. Stay safe. Peace out.